Welcome to the Limitless Podcast. The Limitless Podcast is centered around exactly that, being limitless. Hunting, fishing, fitness, nutrition, adventure, disabilities. What may be covered during the Limitless Podcast will be, well, limitless. Stay tuned for this episode of the Limitless Podcast. Limitless Podcast listeners, welcome to the first episode of 2025. It seems like forever since I have done two things. One is just record an episode. I think the last recording I did may have been November 2024. I think it's been so long since I've recorded and published an episode. I don't even remember which month it was that I last recorded and published an episode. It's been a wonderful break. The holidays definitely played a part in that. And I am also looking at the life decision of whether or not Limitless Podcast was going to carry on into 2025. That is yet to be determined, other than this one episode is for sure happening. The other thing that it seems like forever since I've done is record a podcast with my good friend Chris Hamm from HHA Sports and HHA USA. And typically at this point in the recording, I would run through all of the amazing sponsors that have backed the Limitless Podcast for your benefit. However, due to my break over the holidays and my contemplation and praying on whether or not the Limitless Podcast was going to carry on throughout 2025, I have not yet secured and established those relationships and those listener codes for 2025. So as of right now, I'm not going to advertise any listener codes for you. I will tell you that, yes, I still love and drink Hunting Day coffee every day. I do love and use Phelps game calls, both in the turkey woods, in the deer woods, and the elk woods. I do love my On Point adventure foods, especially that strawberry shortcake. Vortex Optics is the only glass that I use. Wilderness Athlete, I use it every single day. And for those of you that are not watching this on YouTube, I just held up my Nalgene bottle that is full of Wilderness Athlete hydration. I have the Love Sauce is in my cabinet, and my wife and I use that occasionally when we really want to spice up our meal. And Venandy holsters, they would like to be a part of the Limitless Podcast if we continue to carry the show on. And also, I do love my Stick It Gear magnetic rangefinder strap. And last but not least, yes, I am a Badlands fan. I love Badlands camo. And if the show carries on, I'm pretty sure we will be working with Badlands this year. So with all of that said, I did tell Chris that I wasn't going to get too far into the sponsor and code thing, but I just wanted to throw out those folks that have supported us in the last year. Chris, welcome. This is I've been on the HHA USA podcast during its life cycle. I don't know if we could count on one hand, probably 5 times I was on the HHA USA podcast. This is the first time that you have been on the other end of the mic with me. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's now that I don't have my own podcast anymore, I think this is the second one that I've done on this side of the mic, and it's nice. As much as I enjoyed my time as a podcaster, just God moved me in a different direction with the growth of our nonprofit, and I just needed to stick all my efforts into that. So as bittersweet as it was to walk away from the podcast, it's nice having one less thing to do. As much as I miss the conversations, I'm still having those. It's just that I'm not putting the microphone out for everybody to hear them anymore. So
that's the big question for me, Chris. I made some life changes last year, and it's certainly leading me in different directions. Sitting down and writing a book certainly had an impact on my podcasting, and also whether or not I it's all about time management. At the end of the day, it's all about time management. When you make God a priority, you make your wife and your relationship a priority, whether it's a husband, whatever that relationship, that earthly relationship is, that's a priority. And then your job or your activities, your hobbies, your goals, all of those things take time. And we as adults have to manage that time. And it's down for me to the point of, do I have the time to podcast? And I love doing this. I really, really do. But it is time. And it's money. That's one thing that I've stood on this platform is I'm not paid to do this. None of the companies that have stood behind the Limitless podcast in 2024, they did not pay me. I was not paid to promote their product. I was not paid to use their product. Those listener codes were 100% for the listeners. This podcast comes out of my pocket. And I retired as of last November from government service completely. And that took a significant chunk out of my income. And so now I have to look at, what things that are costing me money every month do I really want to hold on to and adhere to? And this podcast costs anywhere from probably 25 to $45 a month, which might seem little, but that's half a tank of gas in my truck every 2 weeks or every week. You know what I mean? So as much as I love it, have to ask the question, do I continue to do it? Part of that is kind of up to some of the listeners. If I very rarely get listener feedback, Chris. How often do you get listener feedback on the HHA USA podcast?
Not a lot. I mean, I would get messages on, Messenger, and occasionally people would comment in the comments on the individual podcasts, but not a lot. I think if anything, I would hear a lot from the people that would come to our events. Hey, I listened to so and so's podcast and I really enjoyed that. So I don't, bad as this sounds, I mean, I wouldn't let your listeners dictate whether you're going to come back or not, because if I would have put that out there, obviously the majority would have wanted me to continue doing it. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to there's only 24 hours in a day, and what has God called you to? What is the priority? And obviously in our lives, it's Him first, then our spouses. I've got a business to run. I've got a network of friends that a lot of brothers in Christ that I sharpen iron with on a weekly basis. We've got 4 huge events going on with HHA USA this year. And it's like, do I really need another thing? And I mean, the thing that really, I think, was my shift on not doing the podcast, it was a year ago last fall. So it would have been the fall of 23. I took a couple months off because I had been doing a podcast every week for as long as I could remember, several years. And taking that break, it was nice to be away from it. As much as I missed it, it's like, it was one less thing on my to-do list. And when I came back, I only came back every other week. And it became, as bad as it sounds, it almost became a burden. It's like, oh, that's right, I have to record a podcast again this week. And that's no discredit to any of my guests, to any of the listeners, but it had a season, and that season was over. And after another sabbatical from it last year, and just a lot of prayer, and as God really put together, what our 2025 was going to look like, it became pretty evident that some things had to go, and that podcast was one of them.
It's really up in the air for me. I 100% understand where you're coming from with, do not let the listeners dictate whether I carry on with the Limitless podcast. But I also look at, we have a good friend that likes to write, and he was struggling with his blog for a little while because his, at least communication to me, was, why am I writing this? Nobody responds to my blogs. I'm not tracking a lot of activity on the blog. And so why do I keep writing and producing content for my blog if nobody's reading it? And when that communication came to me, my response to him was, do it for yourself. If you enjoy doing it, do it for yourself. You don't necessarily do it for your readers. And I guess I'm putting myself in that same position, right? do I record the Limitless podcast for other people or do I record it for me? And so I need to pray on that a little bit and see where it's going to go. But it's a time thing, you know. My wife and I really value our time together. She works full time. I might be retired right now. I don't know for how long. I'm not sure if I enjoy being retired, but I'm super busy. And Chris, yeah, it's not only not only is it a time block that I have to reserve on the calendar, the biggest challenge that I'm finding so far at this point in the game is finding people that want to sit down and podcast. You would think that people would jump at the opportunity to sit and chat, whether it's promoting their business, promoting a product, sharing a story. But it's tough to nail people down to get in front of the camera and a mic and record. It's not as easy as people would think. And for me, that became more of a burden trying to find folks currently, trying to find people that want to get on the calendar than it is to actually sit down and record.
Yeah, and I ran into that occasion. I mean, I've got a huge network, but there were, especially when I got into that season where I was only doing one every other week. For a while I would have things planned out, a month, 2 months ahead of time, but all of a sudden work gets busy, life gets busy. It's like, oh, that's right, I have a podcast to record. And at least a couple times when I had Logan Chartrand, my editor, on, it was like he was my go-to to like bail me out. It's like, okay, Logan will probably it's time for a little couch time with Logan. I need to sit down with him and kind of unpack where we've been the last 6 months. And so he was kind of my scapegoat, or he got me out of a couple binds. But you're exactly right. I mean, I'm going to push back just a little bit on one of the things you said. It said, are you doing the podcast for yourself, or are you doing it for your listeners? And I think as believers, everything that we have to do for God. That's really
There you go.
that is really what was kind of the nail in the coffin on mine. It's like, okay, yeah, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy getting the listener feedback. I enjoy telling these stories, but what in Chris Hamm's capacity, what is going to be the most bang for the buck out of trying to give glory to God in everything that I do? And that was these events. And like I said, these conversations are still happening. I could sit here and talk until this time next week on the awesome conversations and the God moments that have happened outside of the realm of a podcast in our ministry over the last year and a half, since I've decided to kind of gradually get out of the podcast game. I mean, so many wonderful things are happening, but I know, and I think early on, maybe I felt the need that, hey, I need to get on a microphone and share those with the world. I don't, I don't have to do that anymore. And that's just, that stuff is between me and God. And that's all that matters, is like, if there's a great thing that happens out on an archery course with a veteran that just has this epiphany through a bow and arrow, I share that special moment with him. We share it with the Lord, and that's good enough. It doesn't have to go on a podcast. I can maybe share it with you or somebody else in a private conversation, but I no longer feel the need to broadcast all that stuff. And I think we get too caught up in the world of social media, likes, followers. Oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. My priority every day is, how can I serve you, Lord? And that really made my decision to walk away from the podcast a pretty easy one when I saw what he had lined up for me going forward into 2025.
And that's becoming a reality for me as well. There's I'm in a phase right now to where, Sunday involves church. Monday nights now, at least for the next 12 weeks, my wife and I have signed up for individual Christian based study groups. So Monday nights are off the table. Tuesday, I lead the Quiver of Men, which is a men's group very close to my heart. So Tuesdays are off the table. At least the first Wednesday of every month is Lions meeting. And so that leaves Thursday, Friday, Saturday, their open calendar. My wife and I do a devotional together. We've started doing that in the year of 2025. So one of those evenings, we're doing a devotional together. We were doing it on Mondays, but now we have different study groups on Mondays. So we have to shift that evening. So now you're looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now that's we're limiting our husband and wife time, because my wife, she's a teacher, so she's gone all day. So we really respect our evening time together. I spend very little time in my shop or doing anything in the evening unless it's revolving around her. And so you start asking yourself, um, where is your free space? Where is your time? What is your direction? What are you being called to do? And I threw this on your plate for direction and guidance and mentorship and praying. And was I going to go back to school? And I'm being called to go back to school. I'm going to start pursuing a bachelor's, and that's going to take up a lot of time. So all these things are leading me in a direction. And I don't know if an outdoor based podcast is part of that direction. Time will tell. I am excited for today because I've always been a guest on your show, and I text you this when we made this date. If I was going to have one more podcast, if it's going to be maybe not the last one would probably be a closeout where I just say, hey, this is it. The Limitless podcast is no longer limitless. It's going away. But my last guest, I would think this would be poetic. So here we are. Let's talk about something different. Let's talk about the new HHA bow sight, because there's a lot of people, self included, that's really excited about the new Nitrix.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're February, early February. That project was a year in the making, and it was hands down the most aggressive new product build that we've done in our 40 plus year history. It wore us out, from my brother, who does majority of the design work, all the design work. Myself, I'm kind of the 30,000 foot guy, but still have some input. And then Jake Mansell, our sales manager. I mean, he's the guy on the front lines that's getting the feedback from the end users through social media, through our dealers at trade shows, through shooters out at the TAC events. So I mean, this was an all hands on deck, full court press, and essentially a redesign. I mean, you look at it from the curb, and yeah, it has a semblance to the old Tetra and the Tetra Max, but essentially everything from the scope back is new. The scope housings are the same. That's the next thing that we address is a new scope for 2026. But everything from the scope back, brand new parts. I mean, you're talking 24 to 26 new parts that had to be designed, fixtured, machined, tested. It was almost like starting a new site company, and it was really done. I'm going to say out of necessity, from a sanity standpoint for us, for manufacturing. Anybody that shot our product, I mean, you go back 5 years ago, we were basically just a single pin sight company. That's what everybody knew us for. We had a 3-pin sight, but the real mover in our line was single pin. Well, then fast forward to 2020, I think it was summer of 2022, we came out with the 2-pin rise, and I'm going to call it the bracket. So it's the main component on the sight that houses the yardage wheel. It also is where the vertical slide that the scope attaches to interfaces, and then sticking out the rear end of that bracket is going to be your attachment to your bow. So if you've got a Hoyt with a Hoyt bow or a PSE with a pick rail on it, that's going to attach to there. If you've got a Matthews bridge lock, your dovetail is going to attach to that. So it's kind of the intersection where everything happens on the site. And so that product, even when we were just doing single pins, we had to have a version for the Tetra. We had to have one for the Tetra Max. We had to have right and left hand. So we're machining 4 brackets out of the same extrusion. Fast forward to 2022, and we come out with the Rise. Well, now in order to house the little 2-pin needle carrier, we need a different bracket. So that balloons us up from 4 to 8 brackets.
Wow.
Fast forward to January of 2024, when we dropped the X3, the 3-pin, that's got it looks like a boomerang that houses the 3 adjustable indicator pins on it. That requires 4 more brackets. So now we are machining 12 different brackets out of the same extrusion last year. And it was absolutely maddening to try to keep those 12 trains going down the tracks in equal distance to each other to keep everything on the shelf. And it just got exhausting from an inventory standpoint. And that's just internal. You look at it from a consumer standpoint. Aaron Ritter goes out and buys a single pin sight in the spring of 2022. And all of a sudden we come out with a two pin. Well, I'm sorry, Aaron, you've got to buy a whole new sight. I mean, yes, the sight housing would fit on there, but you don't have the benefit of the needle shoes. And so it really became pretty obvious that we had to make a change. One, like I said, for our own sanity, but just to clean up the line and make it easier for the consumer to switch from a one pin to a three pin, or a two to a three, or whatever combination you wanted to do. So my brother just did a masterful job of the redesign. First access was another thing that we were getting a lot of demand for. We always had second and third, but we didn't have first access on our sites. And for the money that we were charging, we should have had it. And so that was incorporated. We went from 12 brackets down to one.
That's amazing.
The Nitrix is essentially the Tetra. The Nitrix Pro is the Tetra Max, where it's got the removable wheels on it. But yeah, 12 brackets down to one. So now we just have one machine running brackets. I mean, wash, rinse, repeat. Run a batch of 1,000, start over, run another 1,000, run another 1,000. Totally simplifying things, making us much more efficient internally from a machining and an assembly standpoint. And that's the beauty on the assembly end, is the needle bracket is the very last component that goes on the site. So we can build sites all day long. If we have 1,000 sites, we're building, and then the first Monday of every week, there's only one Monday in a week, but the first day of the week, Jake will get with my production manager and say, hey, Mark, we need to ship 600 one-pin sites this week. We need 200 two-pins, 200 three-pins. So he basically gives him his marching orders, and then that's the last piece that gets grafted on those site brackets before they go in the package. So it is just, we're only a month in. We just started shipping product right before Christmas. So we're, maybe 6 weeks in, but we're already feeling the fruits of the redesign from an internal standpoint. And I mean, it's a sleeker looking design. We redesigned the yardage wheels a little bit. It's a sexier, more 2025 look to it. And the dealers and the consumers have responded in kind. I mean, we're busy right now. We're very busy. It's been a great launch. The guys from Almond Productions did just a masterful job on our 8-minute launch video. I mean, if that doesn't get you fired up about getting out and bow hunting and shooting some 3D and buying a new HHA site, I don't know what will. So it's been good.
That was a stellar launch video, by the way.
Yeah, I would put those guys up against anybody in the industry or in any industry for the quality of work that they do. I mean, they hit a home run with that in a big way.
No, it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. So I have a question. You've been talking about one bracket to serve them all, and then all of your different scope options and a potential scope redesign for 2026. Am I hearing this correctly?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, the scope hasn't really changed a lot in the last 10 years. So that's the next area of innovation, is we've done everything from the scope back. So now we need to modernize the front ends a little bit. So,
okay. Will that provide HHA site users and or fans, however you want to designate them? I'm a fan user. Will I be able to buy a bow sight from you? And could I buy a Nitrix this year? And then next year, when the new scopes come out, let's say I buy a Nitrix 2-pin. Next year, if I wanted to try a 3-pin, can I just buy the upgraded scope and attach it to my own bracket? Or do I have to continue buying the entire sight from you?
no, 100%. And any new scope that we come out will fit on the Nitrix platform. So you're not going to have to start over. If anybody that buys a sight this year, if they want to upgrade to a new head next year, it's just going to be buying the new head.
Okay. So I don't, in my previous podcast, and it is the foundation that I believe in, I preach to people, I like to shoot what I will hunt with. I'm a big fan of, perfect practice makes perfect, and train to fight. And for me, I don't want to walk around 3D courses with a 3D bow and then come hunting season, go pick up a completely different bow to go hunt with. And I'm not saying anything against people that like to shoot 3D competitively. Chris Dunlap is an incredible archer, and he has a beautiful 3D bow, and he loves the 3D circuit, and he hunts with a completely different bow. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the normal guy that's not necessarily going to compete in 3D or target. If like for me, my annual activities are I I might go to attack, I go to a couple of 3D shoots, and then I hunt. I want to use the bow that I'm going to hunt with year round because I it's muscle memory and I really get in tune with that bow. So when that shot of a lifetime comes my way, my bow is my bow. However, I'm looking at the idea of that tack optic, or certain scenarios where you have that single or two pin sight, and then maybe you have a three pin sight. Like I love going out west and hunting elk when I can, and I've been doing it with a single pin for a couple of years now, but there's great benefit of having that 20, 30, 40 with the floater. So if that elk comes into range and it's moving and you have to adjust on the fly, you have those three designated pins, and then if it's at further distance you can range it and adjust your floater, versus being maybe in a ground blind, or in a tree stand, or maybe you have a spotter with you and you have that single pin, and you can depending on how fast your bow is or what your arrow build is, maybe 25 yards and less, you have that 25-yard pin, and at 30 yards or less you hold center mass and that arrow's going in the pump house. There's just different opportunities there, and to be able to take a scope housing and pull it off and then put another one on and just keep moving forward and not having to buy a whole new sight or sight bracket. It's a little bit of that's a little alluring. I'm liking the idea of it.
It's a literally a 5 minute quick change. And I mean, yeah, I'm the same guy. I don't do any Western hunting myself, but I like to shoot 3D. And when I start shooting 3D in April at our events, I'm going to be shooting that same bow, 5 months later in the deer blind in Wisconsin. And I like the same setup year round. But for folks that want to change, it's just a matter of buying a different scope head and the corresponding needle shoe that comes uh, that corresponds to your amount of pins, and it's literally a 5 minute change. So and the video articulates that very well. It shows changing 1, 2, 3, 4 pin. It's literally a 5 minute process, if that. And yeah, well, I've never been more excited about this the place that our company is at in the marketplace, and the quality of our product, the level of our partners that we have that are promoting it. I mean, we are firing on all cylinders, 40 years into our business, and we're as Jake says, we're in a good spot.
I put a sight light on my bow for the first time last year, and it happened to be your sight light. I really enjoyed it. I hunted out of a ground blind more last year than I have my entire life, and that light proved to be a big help. And I used it out of a tree saddle a little bit when I just did morning hunts, or a 4-hour hunt during the day or something like that. I won't take it in the backcountry. It's just another piece of gear to take, something else I have to worry about having charged. And realistically, when I'm backcountry hunting, I'm either I'm on the ground or I'm up in a tree, but I'm not I'm not pushing the light envelope like I have to worry about in a ground blind, I guess. But I really enjoyed it, and it's so simple. It's small. It's simple. There's some very complicated sight lights out there, and the HHA sight light it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's not was not our design. We got that from another, actually through one of our competitors that decided to partner with us on it. So it's a great product. I put mine on in the fall of 2023, and I'm pretty much exclusively a ground blind hunter. It's not that I dislike tree stands, but I fell in love with blind hunting a few years back and just really enjoy it. And if you're in a blind, you need a sight light. And so
Mm-hmm.
um, stuck it on in September of 2023, and I think when I went to go hunting last fall, my light still had a charge to it. And I mean, my garage is not heated, but even in the Wisconsin winters, my garage might get down to 40, 45 degrees, and in the summertime, it'll get up to 80 or 85 in there. So I basically had that light out in my garage for over a year, and it held its charge. I think I had to charge it about midway through last season. So quite a quite a product. I love it because it is short, it's compact, and I would have to check with Jake and with our warranty team, but I don't think we've had any issues with the volume of lights that we sold last year. Any complaints on it? It's definitely a good product and a great asset for anybody that's going to hunt out of a ground blind.
It's so simple.
Yeah,
It is. It's just so simple.
yeah.
I'm a big fan, very big fan.
Three brightness settings, and you can turn the collar so that you can basically cover up the charging port, so you don't have to worry about getting any dirt or anything in that. So yeah, they did a beautiful job on the design. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's very good. What
yeah,
else anything else new from HHA?
we're always working on something. So I'm not going to let too many cats out of the bag, but we've got a couple other projects that might hit the market before fall. So
Okay.
keep an ear to the ground on our social media. Subscribe to our email list if you haven't, and yeah, those folks will be the first to know. But yeah, we're always working on something. So
Okay. Any new merch coming out?
good chance. Yeah, Jake does a great job with all that stuff. He's pretty much got free reign to do what he wants there. So I think pretty sure we just launched a few new. I think we just launched a new hoodie and maybe a couple of new tees. And I don't know hat wise. I know we did some hats last fall, but as that stuff goes, I mean, we don't buy too much of it at any given time, just so that we can turn it over and keep coming out with new designs 2, 3 times throughout the year. So yeah, I would have to think that we just did some here before Christmas, but I would think by spring or early summer you'll be seeing some more new stuff coming. So
Excellent. That's good to hear. My
yeah.
last question pertaining to HHA Sports. Well, it might be maybe two more questions, but colors. Are you going to expand your color options for your sites this year?
We did do, I know for the Matthews fans out there, they have a new color, I believe it's slate. And we have a beautiful color match to that. We actually had that bow on display at the ATA show back in Indianapolis. So and we've still got like a desert sand and a moss. So we're kind of hitting the browns, the greens, and the grays, and we'll just continue to stay up to speed with whatever the bow companies do. So yeah, that Cerakote finish has definitely been a hit for us. So yeah, whatever the customers want, we should be able to offer. So
Okay, right on. And then y- actually, you may not be able to answer this. I brought it up in our chat before we hit the record button, and you said it's up to Jake. I was wondering if you can tell listeners where they might see HHA Sports throughout the year at any events. Are you aware of any?
yeah, we are. I mean, we obviously have our trade shows that aren't open to the public. That's our circuit that we're doing now. We were at the ATA, and then we've got 2 or 3 buying group shows here in January and February. Jake and Dylan did head out to the Lancaster Classic for anybody that was out there. Lancaster's a big customer of ours, and we like to go and support that. And then we do have 3 or 4 Total Archery Challenge events on our calendar. So I'm sure our media team will be posting those pretty soon. But I think basically, I think the way Jake and I figured it out, we just wanted to do one of those a month. So I think there's going to be an April or a May event, and then a June, a July, and an August. So you'll be able to see the HHA trailer at least 3 or 4 TAC events in 2025.
Excellent, love it.
Yeah.
Um, then let's move on to HHA USA. Talk to us about HHA USA. I'm proudly sporting my hoodie today. This is a very comfortable hoodie. So if and I haven't been to the website for a while, so I'm not sure if you still have them in stock. But if you're looking for a nice, heavyweight, comfortable, warm hoodie, it is black camo. That supports an amazing organization, a nonprofit that is focused on. It's a veteran based nonprofit for combating veteran suicide and promoting veteran health. That would be HHA USA. So tell us what's going on with your HHA USA endeavors.
Yeah, so to answer your question, well, twofold. Yes, that is an awesome hoodie. I think mine is in the washer right now. I was wearing it over the weekend, and that's one of those ones that sometimes you get hooded sweatshirts and the hoods are kind of shallow on them, but I'm a napper, so if I'm napping on the weekend, we have big windows out the back of our house, and if it's sunny out, I kind of like to, yeah, go into my cave, so that's got a nice big hood on it that allows you to kind of do the South Park thing and pull it over your nose.
If you're a Star Wars guy, like somebody currently on the show might be, it
Yeah,
has a very like Sith Lordish fit to it.
yeah, I'm on the light side, so I'm gonna go more of a Luke Skywalker Jedi hood, but yeah, I smell what you're cooking, so. But yeah, and we do still have them in stock on the website. So, um, but yeah, HHA USA. I mean, this is our 6th year as a 501(c)(3), and it's just been so cool to see how it has evolved. I mean, it started out, gosh, 8, 9 years ago. I started out as a ground volunteer for our local honor flight chapter. That's initially where I got my heart for the veteran community, was serving as a ground volunteer for those honor flights that send World War II, Korean, Vietnam vets to DC for the day to see the war memorials. And then it just took off from there. We started putting on these archery shoots. Um, this year we're down to 4 events here in Wisconsin. We're not doing anything outside of Wisconsin yet. I don't want to create false hope that there is any plans on the docket for out-of-state HHA USA events, but I think at some point we'll probably see that. Um, but for now, we're continuing to hold these 4 events in Wisconsin, and have partnered with 4 really great organizations within the state of Wisconsin to offer some pretty neat opportunities on the Friday for veterans and first responders. It's an invitation only thing. I don't push it a whole lot on social media, just because I think eventually we're going to get to the point where we aren't going to be able to accommodate all the requests that we get. But you have been out the vortex yourself. Took part in that event a couple of years ago. So we are doing a private event on the Friday before our April event at Vortex. We're doing the same thing at Matthews in May. We're doing the same thing here at HHA in July. And then we're doing the same thing in August up at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. So 4 pretty big hitters that are going to allow us to basically invite 100 veterans and first responders in for a pretty special Friday of a tour lunch. And then we've got a private archery shoot on the back half of that Friday at the local archery club for those members, or those servicemen and women as well. Providing them dinner, providing them with a little musical entertainment. So really kind of stepping up our game to love on that community even more. And we're doing it through a partnership with Center Shot, which, for people that aren't familiar with Center Shot Ministries, Matthews Archery years ago, decades ago, introduced the Genesis bow, which is an introductory bow for anybody from 4 to 104 to learn how to shoot a bow and arrow. National Archery in Schools program, they call it NASP for short, was introduced shortly after the Genesis bow came out, and that has introduced archery to millions of kids and adults across the country and across the world. But NASP traditionally was for getting bows and arrows into kids' hands at a grade school level and introducing them to the sport. Center Shot Ministries, with Matt McPherson being a Christian, Center Shot is one of their ministries, and it's essentially NASP, and then they share the gospel with it as well. And so I became really close friends with the president of Center Shot. He took over in 2019. Man's name is Aaron Ritter. One of my closest friends, brother in Christ. Aaron has been the chaplain for the Green Bay and the Brown County Police Departments for the better part of the last 15 years. And so through his time as a chaplain, he has been able to see firsthand just the the effects of the job of law enforcement on these officers. Has seen what PTSD looks like firsthand. Has been able to minister to those folks, but then God essentially gave him the idea that maybe the Center Shot thing needs to go beyond kids. Maybe we need to start introducing archery to our veterans, our law enforcement, our first responders. And so Center Shot Blue started 3 years ago, ironically, right about the time that Aaron and I met. And we're basically serving identical communities. So it became pretty obvious over the last year or so that a partnership was in the in the making for Center Shot Blue and HHA USA. And that's really kind of one of the primary focuses for these Friday events. Being that we only do events in Wisconsin, people will come to our events all the time, yourself included, and I hear it all the time. Chris, you have no idea how much I needed this weekend. I really needed this, and that gets me emotional. It makes my heart fill up knowing that we're delivering something that these folks need. But at the same time, it's like, well, Aaron, what are you going to do for the next 365 days until I see you again to come back to one of these events? And so Center Shot Blue essentially is HHA USA in a nice, neat little box, and we can send it home with them. The program that Center Shot Blue is doing is amazing. They actually, I think it was the first of its kind, but over in Green Bay at Hunter's Edge Archery, they have what they call Bo and Joe. And it's every Wednesday morning, January, February, and March from 6 to 9 o'clock before they open up to the public. Any service member in a 3-county radius can come. They can bring their family and basically shoot bows and arrows for free and drink coffee. Thus the Bo and Joe name. And that program has just been transformational for the individuals that have been involved in it, be it the Center Shot Blue instructors or the attendees themselves. And it's a safe place for people that have served or are serving to unpack their stuff instead of going to a gambling hall, going to a strip club, going to a bar and burying those problems in the bottom of a bottle. You and I build a bond over a stick and string over a couple months' time, and all of a sudden you're like, man, Chris, I'm really having some struggles with my marriage, or I'm having some financial difficulties, or I'm looking at pornography, whatever that problem might be. It's just providing a safe place to unpack that stuff. Very similar to what our HHA USA weekends represent. And so, like I said, it just seemed like a natural fit for Aaron and I to partner. And we were at Vortex last year, that Friday, and we had gone back to the archery club. We had a scramble going on for about 80 servicemen and women. And Aaron comes up to me. He's like, I think Matt would be interested in doing one of these at their place. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, this is a big deal. We need to take this to the next level. So he approached Matthews about it. They signed on. I talked to my brother about it, and then some of the Center Shot Blue officers out of Green Bay obviously do some work with the Packers, and so we had a meeting with them back in February. I'm sorry, back in December, and they agreed to be a part of it as well. So super excited. And like I said, unfortunately, this isn't something we can open up to anybody, but if there is, veterans, law enforcement officers that instead of maybe taking a trip to a TAC event, if you would like to come to Wisconsin and take part in one of these Fridays, I would welcome a text message, an email, whatever, through our HHA USA website. That contact comes directly to me. So we have a feeling that over time there's going to be a wait list for these things, and that's okay. It's just I've never been more excited about the future of where HHA USA is going, and that's why I think at some point, we may end up doing an out-of-state event here or there where we have a regional event where maybe, we're not requiring people to travel to Wisconsin, but maybe it's a Florida, maybe it's a Charlotte, North Carolina, a Nashville, Tennessee, a Texas. We have a big event where 300, 400, 500 servicemen and women can come and gather and experience what we do at an HHA USA event.
I can speak from experience. I've been to two HHA events, and both have been near and dear to my heart. Certain things happened at each event. So I can 100% say if you've been to one, and then you go to a second, they're not going to be the same. I would even go as far to say that if you went to the same location, the same venue 2 years in a row, you will probably have, almost guaranteed that you're going to have two very distinct, different experiences. The way God works at those events, whether you're a God-fearing person when you go or when you leave, or for the first year or the second year, great works are going to happen. The people that you're going to interact with, the conversations that you're going to have, the connections that you're going to make, the networking that will take place Whether you're a hunter, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a professional in the outdoor industry, whatever it is you're doing or not doing, when you go to an HHA USA event, it is going to change your life every single year. Guaranteed.
Yeah, and it does it for me. I mean, I wasn't in the service, but they each weekend impacts me differently because, there's always a different, we have a lot of people that attend the same weekends, but there's always a different mix of people and you're spending time with a different group.
Mhm.
And God works at every event. He just works in different ways and through different people. And I mean, I don't think he'll be opposed to me sharing this, but I mean, Jeff Littrell, who's become a very close friend of yours, came out. We actually met probably an hour apart. You guys both drove into the hotel the first time you and I met, and you and I and Jeff, we all met the same day, right? And he connected with a veteran here in Wisconsin that he literally talks to every week. And I mean, that's the power of what is happening at our shoots. And it just, for folks that are no longer in the service, that, they're trying to, adjust to civilian life, that this fills that gap. It brings that camaraderie that you don't have anymore. And it's impossible to put a price on that. And for as much as I'm talking here on this podcast today, shoot weekends, I just kind of, I might be the MC. I might kind of bring everybody together. We pray over the meal and we start on the Fridays, but then I just stand back and I let God do what only He can do. And it's just, I get emotional seeing those conversations sometimes, just knowing, yeah, you can just tell, you're like, yeah, there's something really, really good happening over there. And then to hear that weeks, months, even years after those events happen, I mean, there is lifelong friendships that are getting forged at these things. And quite honestly, lives are being saved. And that's why I do it. That's why I get out of bed every morning, is because I know that this is the mission, this is the purpose that God has called me to in this life. And as long as I have air in my lungs and I can do it, I'm going to be doing it.
No, they're incredible events. Yeah, I've been to several TACs and they're so much fun. The first one that I ever went to, I went alone. And then the one I went to last year, I went with a whole group of people and we had a great time. I go to expos and I have a great time, but the HHA events are different. It's a completely different flavor. Different things happen there. I will say that from a mental health standpoint, when you're there, you start cleaning the cobwebs out of your head. The background noise dissipates. Now, what you do with that healing when you leave an HHA USA event, that is a little bit on the individual. Um, it will only be as good as you make it, but I promise you, while you're there, it will give you some tools and some connections to move forward in a positive direction.
Well, that's why I'm so excited about the Center Shot partnership, is because for the last 5 years, yes, we've delivered some great events, but it's like once the weekend's over, then it's like you said, it's completely on the individual to do with what they choose after that. But now we've got a mechanism where we can, like I say, put this thing in a box. If you want to do this and take it home with you, you can.
Mhm.
Bob Bartek, very close friend of mine, 33 years in the fire service. Bob retired a year ago, December. And Bob is now battling PTS as well from his 33 years in the service. Bob has been a Christian for a very long time. He's been an outdoorsman for a very long time. Bob and I are starting Center Shot Blue here in Wisconsin Rapids. We are launching a Center Shot Blue chapter, Center Shot. I'm not just talking the talk. I'm going to walk the walk, and we are going to use Green Bay and what they're doing at their Bow and Joe. Hopefully, our local archery shop's going to want to jump on board with that. Same thing with an archery range. I mean, I want to have a Bow and Joe 3D league in the summer where 10, 12 weeks, June, July, August, there's 30, 40, 50 veterans and first responders out at our local archery range shooting bows and arrows every Tuesday or Wednesday night. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be incredible.
And that is available to anybody that wants to. I mean, you don't have to do it under the Center Shot Blue platform, but they've got such a great mechanism. So they did a 3-day retreat where their whole board just got away. They prayed, they fasted, and they were just looking for clarity on their mission, and they came up with God hand delivered them what they call the center shot blue matrix. And it is, I get chills every time I talk about it. They use the letters BLUE, and it's a grid with the letters down the left side, and then across the top, it's mind, body, and soul. And so that you've got 12 different words, you know, four with a B, four with an L, four with a U, four with an E, and you can basically unpack those things if you so choose. Um, like B, for instance, in the mind is barriers. What are the barriers in your mind that are creating you from getting your healing? The E happens to be the escape. What's your escape? Is it gambling? Is it alcohol? What is it? I mean, it's such a it's such a clear cut pathway to healing. And they've just done a masterful job unpacking it, and I'm excited to dive into it for my own self. I mean, I wasn't in the service, but I still have some junk in here that I could probably do a better job managing, and to be able to do it through this platform and then use the bow and arrow on top of it and to help our veterans and our first responders. It's like I said, it's my calling. It's why I'm here.
Love it. That's great, Chris.
Yeah, it's been a blessing. And then just to intersect with folks like you, with the Chad Stillmans, the David Wootens of the world. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I mean, yeah, I don't have a podcast anymore, but there's been at least two or three other podcasts that have been born out of the HHA USA podcast. And I don't say that to brag, but it's a fact, is that people walk away from these things inspired with purpose, and it's like, hey, I can do this too. I mean, your grant got started as a result of our conversation,
Yep. 4 years ago.
and that's just
4 years. 4 years ago, Chris.
it's been that long. And
It's been
I
that
think
long.
I think about Mike Dragich and the guys from Project Savior. I mean, look at the work that God is doing through their ministry. And I mean, Mike reached out to Brad Clay from the Prayer Breakfast through Instagram. He and I get connected. 2 months later, he's up at Vortex, and those guys are off and running and just doing amazing things down in Florida and Texas for our veterans. I mean, it's it's very rewarding. Not that I get prideful about it, but it's humbling when I think, my gosh, had I said no to this calling. And I think that's something that's very important, is that so many times God will put ideas into our mind, and it's completely up to us if we want to do them or not. The enemy will attack and say, ah, you don't need to do this, somebody else will do it. But what if I would have said no? You and I probably wouldn't know each other.
It's one of my favorite scriptures from the New Testament, Chris, is um it's Jesus speaking. He did not come to be served, he came to serve. And you will find so much reward in serving others. And that is what's happening. And again, we keep circling back to, what are you going to experience when you go to an HHA USA event? You're going to experience service, and you're gonna in so many, it's like multifaceted, because majority of the people that attend an HHA USA are veterans or first responders who are serving or have served their fellow man in some capacity, be it at the community level or the country level. They've served their fellow man. They've served each other. A large number of them are serving the Lord, and we're serving each other. And it's an amazing experience. It truly is. And when you start focusing your energy on serving others and not yourself or your self needs or those stones that we stumble upon, um, you start going in a positive direction. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's contagious. I mean, I think of my life before Christ. I mean, for 40 years of my life, I served myself. Everything
Mhm.
I did was to build Chris Hamm a little higher up on the hill than I was the day before, and now that's not even on the radar anymore. It's what can I do to build his kingdom, and who am I here to serve? Ultimately, I'm here to serve him, and then he puts on my heart who the individuals are that he highlights, that hey, that this guy could really use this guy could really use a nudge. This guy could use a text message today, or this guy or this gal really needs to come to this event. And he just, when you live your life with that posture, it's just amazing the work that he will do and the doors that he will open. It's really effortless for us when we surrender, because he does all the work. We just have to get out of his way.
100%.
I love it.
What a great chat.
Yeah, so that's where HHA USA is at. We're I don't know when this podcast is going to drop, but by the
Uh,
middle
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Okay, so we're probably about a week to 10 days away from the HHA USA website being updated. I have all the information to the website, folks. So I would say by the 15th of the month, 20th at the latest, all the 2025 events will be on there. And then I'll have Facebook events to go out for them as well. But yeah, some great stuff planned. Like I said, those 4 archery shoots. And for folks that aren't service members, obviously you can still come and support on the Saturdays and Sundays. We have, my gosh, probably 60 or 70 just amazing product sponsors throughout the archery and the outdoor space, whether it's bows, optics, arrows, sights, cases, broadheads, trail cameras, you name it. We've got just a huge array of items out on silent auction every weekend at those events. We've got a long shot. We debuted the Reinhardt steel buck last year, which was a lot of fun. We're going to be bringing that back, so bring extra arrows. And then we work with the Neested Foundation, which you've met Joe Rhodes. Joe is an amazing human being. They're actually going to bookend our season for us, both at the April event and the August event, by putting on a sporting clays shoot on the Saturday. And this I haven't even teased anywhere, so I'll give you the TMZ exclusive on it, Aaron. We are doing a year end. I'm not even going to call it a banquet, but it's going to be more of like a celebration. The Saturday night of the August shoot, which I think is August 16th. We're going to do it at the Woodfire Gun Club. They have a beautiful lodge there, and we're only selling 100 tickets for it. So I haven't quite determined ticket prices yet. That's going to be dependent on the food menu that we go with. But essentially, the tickets are going to be priced as such where those 100 individuals are basically going to pay for the 100 servicemen and women that are going to be invited to the Packer event on Friday. So it's kind of buy a ticket and you're basically supporting a hero. So the heroes will get to come and eat for free. So we'll have 200 folks at that year-end celebration, but only selling 100 tickets to the public for it. And we'll have a big silent auction there. We've got some live music, just kind of our way to celebrate the end of the year and what I know with all expectancy, 2025 is going to be our biggest and our best year yet. So
Love it.
Yeah, great stuff. I just I can't thank you enough for your heart and your passion and one of the greatest success stories of HHA USA has been seeing you and your salvation last January. I get emotional every time I talk about that and think about that, because it means a lot to see the change in you, and just how God is using you and your platform to reach other people for Him. So
I am eternally grateful, Chris. It's been life changing, and I will stop whatever I'm doing at any point, day or night, time of day, time of week, and I will talk about it. I shout it from the mountaintop, man. Yeah.
As we're instructed to do. So no, it's man, it's been a fun journey these last 4 years. I can't wait to see what the next 4 look like.
Absolutely. It's been a great chat, Chris. I want to throw one thing out before we say goodbye to each other on this episode, and that is one of my favorite scriptures. Matthew 3:3 is that's the scripture that speaks to me. But Proverbs 27:17. If you're not familiar, whoever's listening, if you're not familiar with it, this is what this is all about. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpen another. And that's what we do every single day when we serve the Lord and we serve each other.
Yeah, and it's I know some people are probably listening to this. They may not be men or women of faith, but that is really that's the essence of our shoots as well. whether you're a Christian or not, I mean, we are not meant to do this life alone. That's what the devil wants. The devil wants to isolate men because once he has you alone, he can have his way with you and really
100%.
and really take you off the rails. And so that's why I'm so passionate about the work that we do, is because there are individuals that have come to our events that they've been that guy or that gal that they just, because of the trauma they went through, they just want to stay in their house. And I can't speak to that myself personally, but I have seen the flip side of that when we've gotten some of those individuals out of their comfort zone and just seen an instant switch in them. Now they have that community again, and they long for it, and it changes their life. And so, yeah, Proverbs 27:17 is a very, very meaningful scripture to me. I have so many great men in my life, yourself included, that I can sharpen iron with. And yeah, that's really the nuts and bolts of what we do at HHA USA, is just to get together in community and roll up our sleeves and do life together, even if it means the hard stuff. So
That's right. That's what we're meant to do.
love it.
Chris, thank you very much.
Aaron, thank you. It's been
You
an honor.
bet.
Sorry it took me so long.
That's okay. It's not our timing, it's his timing, Chris. So
You beat me to the punch on that one. So yeah.
all right. Well, Chris, I'm going to say one last thing to you before I hit this stop recording button, and that is be limitless, my friend.
Be limitless, Aaron. I love you, brother.
Love you too.